Last summer, I decided to escape my troubles. I was 35 and just laid off from my construction job. I thought about my childhood lakeside cabin at Crystal Lake. I remembered good times there. I thought it would be a nice trip down memory lane that I arrived in the evening. The sky was turning orange, and the lake sparkled as the sun set. Tall trees surrounded me. I felt a little better as I unpacked my bags. I tried to shake off the worry that clung to me like a wet blanket. As night fell, I heard sounds. Maybe crickets. Maybe just the wind. I shrugged it off. That first night, I heard splashes from the lake. I thought it was just wildlife. I pulled the covers tighter and tried to sleep. The splashing continued, quiet but steady. Something didn't feel right. I woke up, feeling uneasy. I didn't know what woke me, but that sound nagged at me. The next morning, I found old photographs in a dusty drawer. They showed smiling kids playing by the water. Their joy felt wrong somehow, like a mask hiding something darker. I couldn't shake the feeling that the lake kept secrets. I didn't know if I wanted to find out. Over the next few days, the splashes grew louder, echoing in the silence of the woods. I felt eyes on me, watching from the shadows. Each time I walked by the lake, I froze when I thought I saw something move beneath the water. My heart raced. I should have left, but I couldn't. I was drawn to the mystery point. One night, I began dreaming. Kids' faces filled my mind. They whispered for help. Each time I woke, sweat covered my body. I shook off the fear, reminding myself they were just dreams. Still, I found myself wandering the woods, searching for answers. One afternoon, I stumbled upon a rotting playground, hidden in weeds. It made my stomach twist. The splashes returned, louder now. I felt frozen. I thought I saw a figure below the surface, shifting in the water. I wanted to run, but I stood there, caught. On my final night, the moon was high, and I stood at the lake's edge. Its surface glimmered under the silvery light. I could hear splashes, clearer this time. I called out, "Is anyone there?" Only silence answered. Then I heard a child's voice. "Help us." My heart pounded. I turned, and I saw a shape moving in the water. I didn't know what to do. The air grew cold. Shadows beneath the surface grew darker, stretching toward me. My breath caught in my throat. There was nobody else around. "Why did you leave us?" A whisper danced in my ears. I stumbled back, panic filling me. I wanted to deny it all, to call it a trick of my mind. But as I turned to escape, the whispers grew louder, racing through the night. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking beneath that dark water, waiting. I stumbled away from the shore, my heart racing. Every instinct screamed for me to run, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the lake. The water rippled, as if something moved just out of sight. I turned and darted toward the cabin, my breath coming in short gasps. Inside, the familiar smell of wood and dust wrapped around me, but it felt different now, threatening. I slammed the door behind me, as if it could guard me from whatever haunted the lake. I glanced around, searching for something to anchor my mind. A flashlight caught my eye, and I snatched it up from the kitchen counter. The whispers still echoed in my ears, taunting me. They blended into the creaking of the cabin and the rustle of leaves outside. I flicked on the flashlight, its beam slicing through the darkness. I needed to see what was happening at that lake. I couldn't just ignore it. Steeling myself, I stepped out onto the porch. The night was thick with silence. I aimed the flashlight toward the water. Shadows danced across the surface, but the splashes had stopped. My heart sank. Had I imagined it all? A comforting thought, but deep down, I knew better. When I saw it. A shape breaking the water's surface ahead, maybe, but too elongated, too unnatural. Panic surged again. I backed up, almost tripping over my own feet, but the light stabilized my hands. I couldn't look away, even as fear clawed at my insides. Help us. The voice rang clear, more distinct than before. It felt real. It felt desperate. I trembled, torn between the instinct to flee and the urge to discover the truth. Who are you? I called out, struggling to keep my voice steady. My throat felt tight, every fiber of my being screaming to run, but my legs refused to move, the shape submerged, but not before I caught a glimpse of something pale and small. A child? Panic turned to horror as my mind raced with the photographs I'd found earlier. I remembered those smiling faces, now shadowed by the weight of the lake's mystery. Come play with us. The voice was sweeter now, almost musical, but it still held that urgency, a sharp edge. It reminded me of laughter, but there was also something haunting about it. I felt drawn in, like a moth to a flame that I grabbed the railing, trying to stabilize myself. I noticed something in the mud at the water's edge. A glimmer, a toy. My heart skipped. It looked like a small figure, bright against the darkness. I hesitated, but the whispering grew louder, wrapping around me, then everything went dark. The flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into shadows. My heart raced anew. No, no, no. I cried out, panic surging. I stumbled back toward the cabin, my fingers scrambling for the door handle. Suddenly, I heard splashes again, louder this time, closer. It felt like the lake itself was coming for me, a deep hunger beneath the surface. I managed to throw the cabin door open, the darkness nearly swallowing me. I needed to uncover the truth of this place, but now, it felt like I was trapped in a nightmare with no way out. What had I awakened? I slammed the cabin door shut, pressing my back against it as if that could provide a barrier against whatever lurked outside. My heart pounded in my chest, echoing like a drum. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The shadows in the cabin felt more alive now, pulsating with a strange energy. I couldn't just sit here and wait. I needed answers. Rummaging through drawers in the kitchen, I searched for anything that might help me comprehend the situation. My hands shook as I pulled out a dusty notebook. Flipping through the pages, I found old sketches and notes. They all seemed innocent at first, drawings of the lake, the sunsets, and children playing. But then I saw it, a series of strange symbols and phrases repeated over and over. My skin prickled, something about these drawings felt wrong. The notes spoke of lost spirits and the call of the water. I could almost hear the whispers again, urging me to join them. I shook my head, pushing the notebook aside. I had to be rational. But then, a sound snapped me back to reality. A soft tapping came from the window. I approached cautiously, gripping the edge of the table. I peered out, my breath hitching in my throat. The lake looked eerily calm, but the outline of something small moved beneath the surface. I squinted, trying to make sense of the shape. The tapping turned into a faint voice, muffled but recognizable. Help us. I shivered, the familiarity of the phrase sending icy fingers down my spine. Was it the same voice from before? I stepped back, feeling my pulse quicken. Get away from me! I yelled, half hoping that would dispel whatever lingered outside. Silence swallowed my shout, and I felt stupid for giving in to fear. But still, the lingering feeling of being watched clung to me. I needed to know what was really happening. As I paced the room, a light flickered from the living area. The fireplace. I remembered the matches I had seen earlier. Rushing over, I fumbled to light a fire. Shaking hands finally succeeded, and soon, a flame flickered to life, casting light around the room. The warmth was a comfort, but it also created shadows that flickered and danced, when I saw a small figure among the gathered dust on the floor. I knelt down to examine it, a faded toy car, worn but somehow inviting. I lifted it, feeling a chill as I realized it looked just like the car in one of the earlier photographs. Why was it here? Had someone lost it before? And who were those children? As I turned the car over in my hands, there came an urgent pounding on the front door. Not just a knock, a relentless bang, like someone or something wanted to get in. My breath quickened again. I could ignore the whispering outside, but not this. I knew I had to face whatever was coming for me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. I took a deep breath, preparing for whatever lay ahead. I had awakened something at the lake, and it was coming for me. I had to choose, either confront the truth or stay hidden in this cabin, haunted by what I didn't understand. But as I opened the door, I realized I was not alone. I stumbled back as the door creaked open. The figure that stood before me was slick with rain, water dripping from a slicked-back mane of hair. It was a girl, maybe around 8 or 9, with wide, solemn eyes that seemed to search right through me. The moment our gazes met, I felt a chill sweep through the cabin. "Please, you have to help," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The urgency was evident, but there was something deeper, a sense of despair that made my stomach knot. "Help? Help with what?" I stammered, instinctively closing the door partially, trying to put a barrier between us. "The lake," she said urgently. "They need you. You have to listen." I shook my head in disbelief. "Who needs me? What do you mean?" Without warning, she stepped forward, the air around her colder than before, as if she carried a part of the lake's icy water with her. "They are trapped. You can set them free." The flared warning bells in my mind screamed at me to shut the door completely. I couldn't just let some lost child, and especially one who was out in a storm and speaking of the lake. "You don't understand. I don't know anything about it." The girl's expression faltered. "You do. You felt it. The whispers. You saw the toys. It's not just the lake, it's the children." I froze. The realization hit me with a sickening force. The car I had found. The sketches in the notebook. Her words unraveled threads of fear I had tried to stitch back together. But still, a part of me wanted to turn her away. "Why are you here? Why are you telling me this?" Her gaze shifted to the ground, and she muttered, "Because I can't go back. I have to stay." "What do you mean you can't go back?" I pressed, my heart racing. The sound of thunder rumbled ominously outside, shaking the walls of the cabin. "Because I was never meant to leave," she replied, her voice breaking. Then she pointed behind me, her eyes full of fear. "Look." I turned quickly, my heart pounding wildly again. Nothing but shadows danced across the walls, but I felt something in the air, a heavy pulse, like the cabin itself was alive. The whispers intensified, curling around me, join us, no." I shouted, clenching my fists. "You're not real. You can't be." The girl reached for my arm as if trying to pull me toward her. "You have to believe. They're waiting for you. You have to save them before it's too late." In an instant, the front door slammed shut. The sudden noise echoed through the cabin, and the girl was now standing right in front of me, her expression wild with fear. "You have to make a choice. Will you help them?" Before I could respond, the light from the fireplace flickered violently, casting long shadows across the room. Everything blurred for a moment, and I felt the ground shake beneath me. The whispers rose to a crescendo, drowning out my thoughts. Then I understood. Whatever lingered in the lake was reaching for me. I hesitated, wrestling with the dread and curiosity. But there was an urgency I couldn't ignore. My next words could change everything. "Okay. I'll help." Then darkness swept through the room as the lights went out altogether. I stood in the pitch blackness, my heart pounding in my chest. The cabin felt alive, as if the walls were breathing, constricting around me. I reached out, my fingers grazing the rough wood of the wall. "Hey! Are you still there?" I called out, my voice trembling, barely breaking through the silence. No response. Just the heavy weight of the darkness. Then a faint glow flickered in the corner of the room, illuminating the girl's face. Her eyes shone like two stars, and I felt both comforted and terrified by her presence. Come, she whispered, her voice softer now. We don't have much time. Where are we going? I asked, my voice barely rising above a whisper. To the lake, she answered, glancing toward the front door, which felt miles away in the dark. They need us. I felt a pit in my stomach. But somehow, her calmness pulled me forward. Okay, lead the way. Hand in hand, we stepped into the darkness. I opened the door, and the storm's icy breath hit us like a wall. Rain poured down, drenching us instantly. The air was electric, the scent of wet earth mingling with something sweet and rotten. The girl tugged on my hand, directing me down the path toward the lake. Each step felt like we were crossing into another world. The trees loomed around us, getting thicker and more tangled, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. What's down there? I asked, trying to keep the fear out of my voice. The children. They're trapped beneath the surface, she replied, glancing back at me. But we can help them. You can help them. Help how? We need to let them know they're not forgotten. You have to remember. Just as her words settled in, I spotted shadowy figures flitting just beyond the tree line. My heart raced as they moved silently, blending in and out of the mist. Were those the children she spoke of? Do you see them? She asked, urgency creeping back into her tone. They're waiting. I don't understand, I admitted. What happened to them? She froze for a moment, eyes wide and haunted. They're lost. They need to be called back home. A loud clap of thunder echoed across the sky, and I jumped, nearly losing my grip on her hand. The lake stretched out before us, silver light dancing across the waves, beckoning and sinister all at once. Is that where they are? I asked, fear creeping up my spine while the girl nodded. As we approached the water's edge, the surface calmed, reflecting my shocked expression. I shivered, the air was thick, thick with whispers and cold laughter. I could feel eyes on me. What do you want me to do? The words felt heavy in my throat. Call to them, she urged, stepping closer to the water. Tell them they're not alone. Okay, I hesitated, my voice faltering. Children of the lake, can you hear me? The whispers morphed into laughter, echoing back, swirling around me. I felt dread creep in, but I pressed on, you are not alone. We're here. We're coming. Arms emerged from the lake, reaching upwards as if pulling themselves from the depths. I gasped, stumbling back. The girl's grip tightened. You have to help them. You have to say their names. But that's when I saw it, that a dark figure rising from the water, looming over us, with eyes that burned like fire. In that moment, I knew fear. I felt its icy fingers wrapping around my throat. I was frozen, locked in place by the intensity of that dark figure. It towered over the lake, glistening with water, its eyes piercing through me. I couldn't tell if it was staring at me or through me. The girl squeezed my hand, but it felt like I was losing her grip. Stay calm, she said. You have to keep calling to them. Are you crazy? Do you see that thing? My voice trembled. She nodded, unwavering. It's here to protect them. You have to show you mean no harm. The laughter returned, wrapping around us like a cold embrace. I felt like I was caught in a dream, unable to wake up. Taking a deep breath, I called out again, my voice louder this time despite my terror. Children of the lake, please. We're here to help. The surface of the water rippled as the arms pulled themselves farther out. Skeletal hands reached for me, the ghostly forms of children surfacing beside them. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with hope but also fear. You must remember us. One of the children cried out, her voice faint but filled with urgency. Call our names. From the depths, the dark figure moved, swirling the water as it shifted. The eyes were still fixed on me, warning me. This was no game. I needed to remember, but the names felt locked away in a part of my mind I couldn't access. Think. The girl beside me urged. You know them. But all I could think about was the icy fear that clutched my stomach. I felt like I was about to drown. I don't know your names. I shouted. Please, just help me. The shadows around the lake darkened as the figure grew taller. Suddenly, it lunged forward, water cascading around it. You must remember. It bellowed, the voice echoing in my mind. I staggered back, almost losing my balance that in an instant, the children's faces broke through the chaos. A name bubbled to the surface, and I shouted it out, Emily. The dark figure paused. The children stopped moving, their eyes locking onto mine. My heart raced. Emily. I remember you. You played in the woods with us. The girl beside me beamed, her grip firming around my hand. Keep going. More names. My brother, Luke. I shouted desperately. And Sarah. She was there too. Each name sent ripples across the water, and the dark figure's fire-like eyes flickered with something resembling recognition. But deep down, a surge of dread filled me at what I was unraveling. What had happened to these children? Why were they trapped? The laughter began to morph into cries, a chorus of voices rising from the lake. Help us. We've been forgotten. Then everything shifted. The water around me erupted, and the dark figure roared, a sound that felt like it was tearing the very fabric of the night. I turned to the girl beside me, panic rising in my chest. What do we do now? But the girl was staring at the water, her expression shifting to horror. Run! She screamed suddenly. Before I could comprehend, the ground shook beneath my feet, and shadows poured toward us from the lake like a tidal wave. The cries intensified, twisting into a cacophony that threatened to swallow us whole. I turned and bolted down the path, the girl racing beside me, our footsteps pounding against the earth. Behind us, the darkness surged, chasing, hungry, and it felt like the very souls of those children were reaching out, desperate to be saved. Keep running. She shouted as I risked a glance back. The dark figure loomed larger and larger, its fiery eyes blazing with fury, and I knew we couldn't stop now. A part of me wondered if we were running toward salvation or deeper into our doom. The trees whipped past us like a blur, branches reaching out as if they wanted to snatch us back. My lungs burned, but I couldn't afford to slow down. I could hear the water churning behind us, the ominous whispers of those children blending with the fury of the dark figure. Where do we go? I gasped, barely able to keep up with the girl. She didn't respond, just kept her eyes forward, searching for an escape, but my mind raced with fear. We had just awakened something, and now it was angry. Those cries filled my ears, haunting in their desperation. We can't leave them. I shouted, though deep down, I knew we were only two souls against an army of scared, lost children and a dark entity that thrived on our fear. Suddenly, the girl skidded to a halt, gripping my arm and pointing. There. The old boathouse. I followed her gaze, my heart racing. The boathouse stood crooked on the shore, half submerged, swallowed by tangled vines and shadow. No one had used it in years. It seemed like a perfect hiding place or a perfect trap. Are you sure? I asked, torn between instincts. We don't have a choice. She urged, dragging me toward it. I felt the presence still chasing us, the air thick with a sense of impending collapse. No time to think, just run. That we dashed through the door, the wood creaking under our weight. Inside was dim and damp, the smell of mildew filling my nose. I wanted to pull away from her grasp and bolt back outside, but I knew I'd only bring the darkness with me. Look for something to block the door. She shouted, her voice almost swallowed by the echoes. I glanced around, panic gnawing at my insides. Old crates, rusted tools, and splintered wood cluttered the space. I stumbled toward a large, decaying canoe, its hull cracked but still sturdy enough to hold something back. As we heaved it toward the door, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching us. Do you think they can find us in here? I whispered, a chill creeping along my spine. They won tea if we stay quiet, she replied, using every ounce of strength to fit the canoe against the door. My hands trembled as I helped her secure it. But then, I heard it. A soft splash, barely perceptible. Then another. The water was moving outside, and I could almost sense what lurked just beyond the walls. It knew we were here. We need to figure out how to help them. I urged. Those kids, she cut me off. We can't help anyone if we're dead. Before I could answer, the floorboards creaked ominously. The dark figure loomed outside, pushing against the weight of the canoe. The whispers rose again, cutting through my thoughts. Help us. Help us. The fury in its voice echoed against the walls, sending a shudder through my body. The girl's eyes widened. They're getting stronger. We have to do something. I clenched my jaw, remembering the names I had called. What if I call their names again? Do you think it will work? She hesitated, but her fear was palpable. It might. Or it could make it worse. Then everything grew silent for a moment, and in that pause, I felt it. A rush of regret and longing. I took a breath and called out, Emily. Luke. Sarah. We're here. The moment I spoke their names, the shadows outside pulsed and the water thrashed against the walls. The cries transformed, mixing with the laughter I had heard earlier. The sounds grew chaotic, desperate, and I realized we didn't have much time. I glanced at my companion, seeing the fear mirrored in her eyes. It's now or never. And with that, I called out again, louder this time, every ounce of my being behind it. Children of the lake. We won forget you. Suddenly, the door trembled as if something was trying to break through. Make it stop. She screamed, her voice cracking. The cacophony was boiling over, and I was about to call the names one last time when everything went dark. I jolted awake on the cold, hard floor of the boathouse, disoriented as the echoes of the children's cries faded around me. The darkness felt alive, wrapping around my limbs like a heavy blanket. I blinked rapidly, trying to piece together what had just happened. The girl was beside me, her face pale and drawn. Are you okay? I managed to whisper, trying to shake off the disorienting fog in my mind. She nodded slowly, but her eyes were wide with fear. What happened? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know. I rubbed my temples, trying to dispel the remnants of the voices that still echoed in my skull. Somehow, we had gone from chaos to silence as if the world outside had pressed pause. Cautiously, I rose to my feet, glancing toward the door. The canoe still blocked our exit, but the pressure outside seemed to have eased. I took a tentative step forward, ears straining for any sound. And then I heard a soft, rhythmic tapping, almost like fingers drumming against the wood. Do you hear that? I turned to the girl. What is that? I don't know, she replied with a shiver. It feels wrong. The tapping grew louder, the sound shifting now to a more urgent scratching. I backed away instinctively, every instinct telling me to flee. We should leave, I said, urgency lacing my words. Whatever is out there, no. She interrupted, fear sharpening her gaze. If we go out there again, we might wake it up again. We need to find a way to stop it. Stop what? What are we even facing? I don't understand. My heart raced anew, panic rising again. You seem to know more than you're saying. I overheard the stories before, she said so quietly, I almost missed it. About the children of the lake. How they were lost, trapped between this world and the next. And about the thing that keeps them here, the dark figure. What dark figure? The one that drives them to call out to the living. It feeds on our fear, searching for new souls to take. As her words sank in, I felt a cold sweat break out across my skin. The tap-tapping grew more frantic, and I instinctively pressed my back against the wall. What do we do? Maybe we can bring them back, she said, her eyes narrowing with resolve. "If we can find a way to reach them." A sudden crash echoed outside as the canoe shifted, knocking against the door and making me jump. The scratching stopped. What was that? "Something trying to get in," she breathed, wide-eyed. "Then we need to find something to defend ourselves." We shifted through the debris, rusted tools, broken crates, and fishing gear scattered about. And that's when I saw it, a heavy, rusted crowbar tucked under an old workbench. I grabbed it, feeling the weight of it in my hands, my heart pounding in time with the frantic tapping beginning again at the door. "Do you think it knows we're here?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It knows," I replied, suddenly feeling angry. "And it wants us." Before she could respond, a voice slipped through the door, a child's voice. "Help us." I felt nausea knot in my stomach. I didn't recognize the voice, but I couldn't ignore the plea. I glanced at the girl. "We have to answer it, no?" she hissed, eyes darting nervously. "If we do, it will come for us. We have to find another way." But it was too late. The voice grew louder, repeating its call, and I felt an overwhelming pull to respond. I needed to help. My grip on the crowbar tightened as I stepped toward the door, heart racing with dread. What was waiting for us outside? My breath hung in the air, heavy and thick, as I hesitated at the door. The child's voice had an innocent urgency, but I knew better than to trust it. I turned to the girl, who was frozen in place, wide-eyed with terror. "We can't just leave them," I murmured, wrestling with my own fear. "I can't just ignore them. Please," she urged, grabbing my arm tightly. "You don't understand. The stories, they say once you hear their call, the dark figure is already here. It's watching." The implication of her words sent chills down my spine. I glanced at the door, half expecting to see a face peering back at me. Instead, the silence was oppressive, wrapping around me like a cold embrace. I cast my gaze around the boathouse, looking for options, anything that could give us a fighting chance, and then I saw it, a glimmer at the far end of the room. An old lantern sat on a shelf, and I remembered how the light had given me comfort earlier, how it seemed to push back the darkness, if only for a moment. "We need that lantern," I declared, pointing toward it. "No," she said in a harsh whisper. "The light will attract whatever is out there." I felt a surge of frustration bubble up. "And sitting here will do what? We have to make a choice. We can either try to escape," or my voice faltered. "Face whatever is lurking in the shadows." She looked torn, her expression shifting between fear and uncertainty. Finally, she nodded. I took a deep breath and moved toward the lantern, my footing careful, as if the very floor could betray me at any moment. As I reached for the lantern, I heard it again, the child's voice, louder now, more insistent. "Help us." I gritted my teeth against the pull of that plea. I could almost see the faces of lost children floating just beyond the door, shadows draped in moonlight. But the weight of reality pressed down on me. "Please, just hold on," I whispered to myself. Just as my fingers brushed the cool metal of the lantern, a loud bang reverberated through the boathouse. I turned, heart pounding. The door shuddered with a force that sent dust cascading from above. The girl let out a small gasp. "It's coming in." I snatched the lantern off the shelf, a jolt of adrenaline coursing through my veins. In one swift movement, I flicked the switch. The dim glow filled the room, illuminating the scattered shadows, but also revealing a growing darkness outside the door. The banging escalated, fierce and relentless. "We have to move," I shouted, brandishing the crowbar in one hand and the lantern in the other. "Where?" she cried, panic lacing her voice. That I took a step back, head darting between the door and the back of the boathouse. There had to be another way out. The windows. Before I could finish the thought, the door finally gave way, bursting open with a violent crash. The lantern's light flickered wildly, and I caught a glimpse of something dark swirling in the doorway, a formless mass with shadowy tendrils extending toward us. "Run!" I yelled, lunging toward the nearest window, heart in my throat. But then something cold wrapped around my leg, dragging me back, and I felt a scream clawing at my throat. I was about to discover exactly what was waiting for us outside, and my instincts screamed that it was worse than I had imagined. I stumbled, pulling at my leg as the cold tendrils tightened their grip. The darkness surged toward me, swallowing everything in sight except the dim light of the lantern. I fought against the weight, desperation fueling my movements. "Help!" I shouted, hoping the girl could somehow pull me free. I could hear her gasping behind me, the panic in her breath mingling with the chaos swirling through the room. "Grab the lantern!" she yelled, her voice breaking through my fear. I clawed at the ground, trying to find leverage, my fingers slipping against the damp floor. I reached for the lantern and held it aloft, its flickering glow illuminating the dark figure sneering at us from the doorway. The shadows danced erratically, and in one final surge of adrenaline, I threw the lantern toward the approaching darkness. It crashed against the ground, glass shattering, the light consuming the space in a brilliant flash. Shadows recoiled as the brightness expanded, blinding and fierce. But just as quickly as it had ignited, the flame sputtered and died, plunging us back into the dimness that I felt the weight on my leg release, and without thinking, I lunged for the window, desperation pushing me forward. The girl followed closely. We crashed against the flimsy frame, the wood creaking under our combined weight. I pushed, fingers fumbling against the window latch. Whatever was behind us felt closer, and I could hear the whispers growing into a desperate chorus, urging me to stay, to come play one last time. With a triumphant click, the window gave way, and I dove through the narrow opening. The jagged glass bit into my arm as I tumbled onto the damp earth outside the boathouse. I scrambled up and turned, my heart pounding as I waited for her to follow. She squeezed through with a gasp, and we stumbled away from the old structure, its shadows still beckoning behind us. I glanced back, fear making my stomach churn. The dark figure lingered at the entrance, hovering ominously, but the light of the dawn was beginning to break through the trees, creating a barrier between us. "Run!" I shouted again, our feet pounding against the muddy earth as we sprinted toward the edge of the woods and the open trail that led to the main road. Branches scraped against our skin, but we didn't stop. The whispers lingered, but they were quieter now, replaced by the rhythmic thundering of our hearts that we burst through the tree line, and my lungs burned with the cold morning air. A bare stretch of land opened before us, leading to the distant sound of cars on the road. "We have to keep moving," I gasped, hoping the warmth of the day would erase the night's horrors. Finally, we reached the road, panting and wide-eyed, confusion and relief battling in my chest. But as I turned to the girl next to me, the dawning sun barely touching her face, I felt the unease return. She looked at me, and for a moment, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. "Are we safe?" I asked, still breathless. "I don't know," she whispered, glancing back toward the woods. Something flickered in my peripheral vision, a shadow darting between the trees. I didn't want to turn back. "We have to get to town," I urged, gripping her hand tightly so she wouldn't slip from my grasp. But her expression turned solemn, and I realized something important was slipping away with the night. "I can't leave," she murmured, a glimmer of regret shadowing her features. "What do you mean?" My voice trembled, not ready to process what this meant. Before I could ask any further questions, the ground beneath us shook lightly, and the whispers returned, muted but still unmistakable. "They're still here," she said, her gaze locking onto mine. "They'll always be here." Panic spread in my chest again as I felt a fresh wave of cold wash over me, as if the lake itself was calling. "Why can't you come with me?" "Because I don't belong to the world you do anymore," she replied, her voice thick with tears. "But you have to break the cycle. Don't forget them." And just like that, she began to fade, dissolving into mist, her figure swirling away like smoke in the morning light. "No!" I shouted, but my voice echoed back from the woods, hollow and alone. I stood there, heart racing, the remnants of the past closing in around me. What does that even mean? I murmured to myself, the confusion thick in my throat. The trees stood tall and imposing, once again guarding their secrets. I could feel the eyes of those lost children watching from within the shade. Their whispers faded into promises unfulfilled, a haunting reminder of a nightmare that had slipped away, yet lingered like the fog that I had escaped the physical danger, but part of me wondered if the fight had truly ended. My breath came in ragged gasps as I looked down the empty road. Would I ever truly be free, or was I forever marked by the echoes of the lake, lost and forgotten, caught between two worlds? As I began to walk home, questions lounged heavy in my mind. Would the child return? Was the lake still hungry? Or had I merely scratched the surface of a truth that would haunt me forever? At that moment, I realized some mysteries weren't meant to be solved. Sometimes, it was simply better to run.